you know how they tell you that the pyramids were built as tombs. And these tombs were there to have the Pharaoh be buried into, right? You've all heard that. And you would expect that the reason they're telling you that is that they found mummies of pharaohs in pyramids. And typically when you look at the books or when you look at the reports from Egypt and so on, they typically show the pharaoh's tombs and then cut to the pyramids and show this all together in a way that you think that you're looking at this pharaoh's tomb and it's in a pyramid. Well, it's a fact, however, that not one mummy was ever found in a pyramid. Not only in Egypt, but anywhere else in the world for that matter. Okay? In Egypt particularly, mummies were all found in underground vaults that have nothing to do with the pyramids. So wouldn't you think that a pharaoh that built this huge monument to have himself buried in it would at least put on the front, a little epitaph, so and so from this year to this year, we built this pyramid to bury myself, whatever. There is pyramids in Egypt that were completely sealed when they were found, including the Grand Pyramid at Giza. And the archaeologists, at the time almost treasure hunters, had to dynamite their way in many of these pyramids. They couldn't find an entrance. The entrances were plugged with immense 20-ton boulders that was so well matched to the rest of the pyramid, they couldn't find an entrance. So they would dynamite their way in, and in the case of the Grand Pyramid, they fell into a tunnel, and then they backtracked to the entrance, and then they could clear the plugs. And then typically, in some of these pyramids, they would get to the sarcophagus, and the sarcophagus would still be sealed. And it would have a slab of granite on top of it that weighed in excess of 20 tons. And they would lift the slab with great difficulties, unseal the supposed tomb, and find it empty. Completely empty. What was their conclusion? Tomb robbers got there before them. The tomb robbers somehow found the entrance, removed the plug, went in there, took all the treasures, removed the mummy body, lifted the lid, removed the body, took all the rest of the stuff, cleaned everything up, put the lid back on, sealed it back up, went back out, closed the plug, redid everything good, and walked out of there. I don't think so. And so there is huge difficulties in this. There is huge difficulties in these theories. Those are theories. They're not facts. And when you examine these theories, they have immense holes in them. Very large holes that involves thousands of tons of material. So for instance, you have things like the Sphinx. The Sphinx is right in front of the pyramids at Giza. The Sphinx, unlike a lot of people think, is not actually a built model, but is actually a carved statue, carved right out of the Giza Plateau. And there's very interesting things. Now, if you were commissioned to build the Sphinx, what would you do? Now, you've got this huge plateau with this, very good rock in it to carve, and you would want to start carving. So you have to cut the enclosure around the Sphinx body to be able to carve the body. And what they did here is that instead of moving out of the enclosures, little blocks that you would see here, you see, out of the enclosure, if it was you that was commissioned, you'd probably remove like 100-pound block, maybe 200-pound block, maybe 500 pound. If you have a good crane, maybe up to like 1,000 pound, maybe 2,000 pound. Why would you try to remove anything bigger, right? It'd be easier to, to deal with. You move things that match your level of technology. You don't move things that makes it difficult for you to move them, right? Well, the Egyptian somehow, supposedly, moved these blocks from the enclosure. Now, these blocks are known to have come out of the enclosure because the stratas on the blocks match exactly where the strata is here, and you can actually tell where each block goes. And these blocks weigh in the excess of 200 tons. Now these guys, seemingly 4,000 years ago, was moving 200-ton blocks casually, and not only just moving them, but stacking them. Okay? To create what is known as the Valley Temple or the Sphinx Temple in front of the Sphinx. Those are very, very disturbing pieces of data. They are not simply and easily dealt with or, pushed under the carpet. The Sphinx as well has all sorts of erosions on it that do have impact on our concepts of when the Sphinx was built or carved. New evidence has shown that the erosion that you find on the Sphinx body and then on the Sphinx enclosure, this is the enclosure from where the 200-ton blocks were released. The erosion that's seen here demands that there was large amount of rain for long periods of time to create it. We know historically and geologically that the amount of rain needed to create that type of erosion could only happen up to 10,000 years ago after the last ice age. That would mean that the Sphinx was not carved 4,000 years ago, but maybe up to 10,000 to 12,000 years ago.